There is a category of case that no investigator wants to inherit, not because the evidence is thin, not because the witnesses are unreliable, but because the evidence is overwhelming, the witnesses are credible, and the conclusion it all points toward is one that no official report is built to contain. Tonight, 3 paranormal cases from 3 different countries, investigated by police, reviewed by scientists, examined by governments. 3 sets of evidence that remain, to this day, without a satisfactory explanation. We are not going to tell you what to believe. We are going to tell you what happened. On Christmas night, 1945, a house fire tore through the Sodder family home in Fayetteville, West Virginia. George and Jenny Sodder escaped with 4 of their 10 children. The remaining 5, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Janetta, and Betty, ages 5 to 14, were assumed to have died in the blaze. No remains were ever found. Not a bone fragment, not a tooth, not one trace of 5 children in a fire that investigators said burned hot enough to consume everything. The Sodder family spent the rest of their lives convinced their children had not died that night. What they uncovered in the decades that followed is one of the most documented and disturbing unsolved cases in American history. George Sodder woke to smoke around 1 in the morning on Christmas night. The house was already burning. He got himself, Jenny, and 4 children out through the ground floor. He tried to re-enter for the 5 upstairs. The stairs were gone. He ran for the ladder kept against the side of the house. It had been moved. He ran for his coal trucks. Both were inoperable despite running without issue the day before. He stood outside and watched his house burn while 5 of his children remained inside. The fire chief found no remains and closed the case within days. The problems were immediate. Forensic science was clear on one point by 1945. A house fire cannot fully consume human bone. Teeth, in particular, are among the most fire-resistant structures in the human body. In a fire that destroyed every piece of furniture and every household object in the Sodder home, the complete absence of any bone fragment or tooth from 5 children was not scientifically consistent with what had occurred. The fire chief offered no explanation. He closed the case. George hired an independent investigator. That investigator found a human liver in the rubble, fresh, unburned, intact, clearly placed in the debris after the fire rather than consumed by it. The fire chief's explanation was that it must have been a beef liver from the family refrigerator that survived. The Sodders had no beef liver in their refrigerator. Their grocery records confirmed this. A forensic pathologist, who later examined photographs of the organ, confirmed it was human. The witnesses complicated things further. A woman living nearby reported seeing an unrecognized man studying the Sodder house carefully on Christmas Eve. She reported it after the fire. It was not followed up. A bus driver reported seeing children matching the missing Sodders at a motel in a neighboring county, accompanied by strangers, appearing distressed. He went to police when he connected it to the news reports. His account was not formally investigated. Over the following years, the family received letters from across the country claiming sightings of the children. George erected a billboard displaying photographs of all 5 children and offering a reward. It stood for 30 years. In 1967, 22 years after the fire, Jenny received a photograph. No return address, no letter. A photograph of a young man in his mid-20s. On the back, in handwriting no one ever identified. Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie, Lil boys, a 90132. The photograph bore a strong resemblance to what Louis Sodder might have looked like as an adult. The alphanumeric code was never decoded. The photograph was confirmed genuine, not fabricated, consistent with 1960s photographic paper. It was the last evidence the family ever received. George died the following year. Jenny lived another 21 years, maintaining the billboard, maintaining the reward, maintaining her conviction that her 5 children had not burned to death on Christmas night in 1945. The case has never been formally reopened. The 5 children remain officially listed as deceased. Their fate is unknown. 5 children. No remains. A human liver placed in the rubble. A photograph sent 22 years later by someone who knew a dead child's name and face. The official position requires accepting all of this as coincidence. The Sodder family never did. Our next case takes us to Suffolk, England, where in December 1980, United States Air Force personnel encountered something in Rendlesham Forest that produced physical evidence, an official military memo, and radiation readings the UK Ministry of Defence has never fully explained. RAF, Woodbridge, and RAF. Bentwaters sit on the eastern edge of Suffolk, separated from the North Sea by Rendlesham Forest. In December 1980, they were jointly operated by the United States Air Force, one of the most significant NATO installations in Europe, housing nuclear weapons, staffed by some of the most highly trained military personnel in the world. These are not people who misidentify aircraft. These are not people whose testimony is dismissed easily. In the early hours of the 26th of December, and again 2 nights later, personnel from those bases encountered something in Rendlesham Forest that has never been identified. It left physical evidence. It was documented in an official military memo. The audio recording made in real time still exists. This is the Rendlesham Forest incident. At approximately 3 a.m. on the 26th of December, security personnel observed unusual lights descending into Rendlesham Forest. Initial assumption: a civilian aircraft down in the trees. A team led by Staff Sergeant Jim Peniston was dispatched. What they found was not a crashed aircraft. Peniston's official report, declassified on public record, describes a triangular craft approximately 3 meters across in a forest clearing. Surface smooth, black, glass-like, geometric symbols along one side, which Peniston sketched in his notebook. He made physical contact. The surface was warm. At the moment of contact, he experienced what he described as a download, a flood of binary code imagery that he transcribed into his notebook in the hours that followed. When that binary code was later decoded, it produced geographical coordinates pointing to a location in the North Atlantic Ocean. The object then rose from the clearing, moved through the trees without disturbing them, and accelerated beyond any speed consistent with conventional propulsion. The physical evidence was examined the following morning. 3 depressions in the earth in a triangular arrangement, measured, photographed, documented. Scorch marks on surrounding trees. Background radiation in the clearing significantly elevated above normal, concentrated precisely in the 3 depressions. Lieutenant Colonel Holt documented all of this in an official memo to the British Ministry of Defence, now fully declassified. A formal communication from a senior USAF officer describing a structured craft, physical traces, elevated radiation, and multiple military witnesses. 2 nights later, Holt himself led a team into the forest. He brought a radiation detector, a night vision device, and a cassette recorder. He narrated events in real time as they unfolded. That recording exists and is publicly available. Holt narrates a pulsing red light moving through the trees, his radiation detector spiking as it approaches. and the object projecting beams onto the weapon storage area. His voice is calm and precise throughout. A senior officer filing a field report, not a man in distress. The UK Ministry of Defence acknowledged the memo, stated the incident presented no national security threat, and declined to release findings. Freedom of Information requests produced documents with significant redactions. What was redacted has never been disclosed. Peniston and Halt have given consistent accounts for 40 years. Neither knows what it was. Both have stated it was not a conventional aircraft, not a natural phenomenon, and not something human knowledge provides a framework for explaining. The Halt memo is on record. The audio exists. What made those marks in the ground has never been identified. Our final case takes us to the Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union, where in February 1959, 9 experienced hikers were found dead in circumstances that have defeated every explanation offered in 65 years. In January 1959, a group of 10 experienced hikers set out from Sverdlovsk in the Soviet Union for a Grade 3 skiing expedition, the highest difficulty classification in the Soviet hiking system. They were not beginners. They were university students and graduates with extensive wilderness experience, led by a 23-year-old named Igor Dyatlov. One member turned back early due to illness. The other 9 were found dead on the eastern slope of a mountain the local people called Kholat Syakhl, Dead Mountain. The manner of their deaths has never been satisfactorily explained. Not by the original Soviet investigation, not by the Russian government reinvestigation in 2019, not by any of the dozens of researchers who have studied the evidence across 65 years. The tent had been cut open from the inside, not unzipped, cut with a knife, creating exits. The group fled their own shelter without their coats, boots, or equipment in temperatures of -30 degrees Celsius. Experienced mountaineers who knew precisely what that exposure meant chose to run into a frozen mountainside in their socks. Whatever was inside that tent was more frightening than the mountain. The first 5 bodies were found in the tree line below the campsite. They had died of hypothermia, consistent with the conditions, explicable in isolation. The final 4 were found in May when the snow melted, sheltering in a ravine. They had not died of hypothermia. 3 of the 4 had massive internal injuries, fractured skulls, crushed ribs, broken sternums. Force equivalent to a vehicle collision or explosive blast, according to the forensic examiner. No external trauma, no bruising. The injuries were internal, as though force had been applied from outside without breaking the skin. 1, Lyudmila Dubinina, was missing her tongue, eyes, and lips. The forensic report attributed this to decomposition and animals. Subsequent analysis found this inadequate. The removal pattern was inconsistent with scavenging. Clothing from several group members tested significantly above normal radiation levels. Source never identified. The Soviet investigation suggested prior contamination, never substantiated. The official conclusion: the group died as a result of an overwhelming natural force. Files classified and sealed. When partially released after the Soviet dissolution, the files revealed something omitted from the official summary. Military and meteorological stations had logged glowing spheres moving through the sky above the Ural Mountains in the week surrounding the deaths. Logged by trained personnel. Not investigated. Filed and sealed. The 2019 Russian reinvestigation concluded: avalanche. The slope angle of Dead Mountain is below the threshold required for avalanche formation. No debris was found. The tent damage is inconsistent with avalanche. The internal injuries are inconsistent with avalanche trauma. Avalanche does not explain the radiation, the missing soft tissue, or why 9 mountaineers cut their way out of their own tent instead of opening the door. The Russian government accepted the conclusion. The scientific community did not. 9 people. Internal injuries with no external cause. Radioactive clothing. Missing soft tissue. Glowing spheres in official military logs. And 9 experienced mountaineers who understood survival, choosing to flee their only shelter into a frozen mountain night rather than face whatever had come inside. Igor Dyatlov was 23 years old. These were not reckless people. They were exactly who you would want beside you on a dangerous mountain. And something on that mountain killed them in a way that 65 years of investigation has not explained. 3 cases, 3 countries, 3 sets of evidence examined by investigators, scientists, and governments. None produced a complete explanation. These are not stories. These are records. Files, photographs, official memos, audio recorded in real time by a military officer in a forest. They exist. They remain open. Subscribe to Retribution Wire for new documented cases every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Contact in the description. No name required. Stay rigorous. And never accept an explanation simply because it is the most convenient one available.